Well, it's 4:01, so I like to get started. Hello. This is our fifth, sixth webinar, I think, right? What do you know, Sarah? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think six.
Six. I think it's six. I feel like this is our second month after our 4-1. So yeah, that would be six. And we're here today to talk about another one of our IC topics. So I'll let Sarah introduce.
I am Sarah Eric. I am the COO of Hill Country Tech Guys. I've been here full time for about 8 years now. And this is Whit Eric. He's the CEO and founding owner. I basically am on the operations side of things, so I handle day-to-day things as well as just really overall trying to improve customer experience and flow. And Whit's really on the business owner side, so he spends a lot of time with business owners, all of our customers, as well as just in the community with other business owners, trying to make sure that we stay not only relevant but actually forward-moving and helping people.
Awesome.
We have been doing this for 6 weeks, so if you would like, you can go onto our blog and you get our other webinars that they are posted up there. We do also record these, and this is generally my disclaimer to Whit to make sure that he hits the record button.
Oh, it's
So that we
recording
can
all
also
day.
post that.
I just checked.
And that our upcoming webinar is August 20th. Maybe it's in a little bit, but just in case, I just want to make sure that we post on there that how we'll handle this is I usually present any questions going on for the webinar to Whit. Yep, there it is. So if you guys have any questions at any time, drop us a chat. If I feel like those questions are probably better as a one-on-one conversation, I'll hold that off, and Whit and I will get with you afterwards. But if it's a conversation that I feel like would benefit the entire group, I discuss it and bring it up right there. So feel free to drop any lines of questions or communication that you want in the chat, and I will bring those to attention.
Cool, thanks. So today we're going to look at IT budget strategies. And I feel like a lot of times people think of budgets as only a tool for financial purposes, as setting up how much money this department has allowed to spend. But I like to use it as often as it can be a indicator to how your IT is going to go. Okay. So I'm going to try to break this down in kind of a 3 light sections as kind of thought leaders on this. And those sections are: how much should you be spending in your IT budget? What are the risks of spending too much or too little? And what we like to put into our IT budget. How expansive is that? Okay. What the experts say, right? Like, what is the industry doing, right? This is big, right? And they want to see businesses being 4 and 6% of their total revenue on IT expenses. And it is a lot of money, but also the IT encompasses a lot of things. We'll get into that later, but it is worthy to know that mid-size and larger companies, 500 to 10,000s, will spend less as a percent of the revenue because there is some scaling of economy. They have more dedicated staff. They get better discounts and pricing on hardware. But your average small company, which most of us in this room are going to be spending in that 6% range. And I'll vary to say, depending on the industry you're in and what you're trying to do with your business goals, you may vary around in that even more. Here's another cool little slide based on the sector of business. Keeping in mind, this is all mid to large business. So as you remember from the previous slide, this is, would be lower if you were in that. So if you're a small bank, you might be up at 8.8%. Small healthcare, you're probably at, let's add a percent, 5.26. I would even say more if you've ever seen the price of EMRs, so it's more. Manufacturing running low. And I think that's because they have a lot of, they're not doing much with the computers other than accounting. But I think manufacturing with finance, with sales engine on the other side, that may be even higher. The salespeople take a lot of tools to keep under control. So anyway.
Well, what I just sent
you. This is our little, what to consider, right? These are some of the things we feel like go into these budgets. What security do you need? What compliance regulations do you need? How big is downtime for you? If we have some businesses that are 24/7, that downtime kills, that they just can't survive with their systems down. Well, in that case, what can I buy two of, right? That seems to what happens in that situation. What can we get two of? What can we have that coverage? Do you have growth patterns? Are you planning on growing? Are you planning on running some big sales campaign and getting a ton of leads or a ton of work? Or are you adding 20 clinics or a new area for your financial business? Those things are very important. In your industry, is there a lot of innovation? Is there a lot of new tools? Is there a lot of turbulence? Medical is often one of the most expensive, not because of the software or the hardware they need. Well, I definitely feel like it's part of it, but the government's constantly introducing regulations that are changing what they have to do. We take care of a lot of hospitals, and they're constantly having to add interfaces to this state organization or interfaces to this state organization that are constantly turning over what they have to do and with the tools they need. So it's very expensive. Remote workforce, right? We're all in COVID. We know how much that costs. But more than that, you have that sales team running around selling stuff. You need to be able to track their activities. You need to be able to track their tools. Often your sales team has their own system that they need to be working in because Excel spreadsheets aren't just enough. So we got to have all that stuff in there. Hey, Timbo's here. Hey, Tim, how you doing, man?
Good.
Good. And also your dependence on technology can go into your budget, right? We have some people that, they may just check their email on their computer. That's often very low dependence. But if you live and die by the computer, you live and die by that ability to check your email, or your orders come in over the internet. And, if that server is not online, you're not making orders. All of that matters. And all that comes into this budget. And if you're on the 4% side or 6% side, I think 6% can be low. If you're in an emerging business that doesn't have a lot of prepackaged tools, you're going to be spending more as you write your own applications. If you think you can write an application and stay under a 6% IT budget, I tell you, you're wrong. Excuse me. The risk, right? Everybody, what's the risk? So what? I let my server get old. So what? I don't have a managed switch or a monitored switch. Well, there's some risk, right? And we have some cool graphs I'll show you later of what it looks like if you don't have a good IT, what it looks like as we move you into that. It's difficult to manage, right? So you can go down to Best Buy and buy a switch, right? They sell them there, whatever. But the problem is that switch is unmonitorable, unmanageable, and also is not updated, right? So that's posing a risk in multiple areas of your IT. Not spending IT for several years can cause a big spend to happen, right? Because you're going to have to spend it sometime. We would prefer you spend it a little at a time. We just keep the status quo in your network. But if you don't spend, you can have this bloat spend where, often when I get invited into a customer's office, it's because they haven't been spending, right? And the worst thing that can happen is they hire us, we fix their environment, but then they don't want to let us keep fixing things. They don't want to let us keep moving things forward. And then guess what? 5 years from now, they're mad and angry again and yelling at us because we haven't been keeping things maintained. And they change IT and they let that IT company do another bloat spend, right? We don't want to get in that cycle. We need to keep this train running. We got to keep greasing the wheels and making sure they're good. Obviously, downtime, right? It's way easier to replace something while it's working than to replace it when it's been broken. It's just, you can expect it to cost extra time. You can expect it to cost extra money. I mean, heck, it's going to impact your relationship with your customers. Everybody's got a customer. If that customer can't buy your services or get what they want, it will affect them. Security risks, right? They don't, it's funny. A lot of things in IT have lifetime warranties. But what they don't tell you is after 6 years, they're going to stop updating that device. So then great, it's going to run forever, but it's not getting patched, right? It's not getting the updates that make it compliant with whatever you have now and make it work correctly. And then we talk a little bit about this, but our impact on service, right? How does it affect our customers when they can't call our office? When the check-in girl at our spa is like, I'm sorry, my computer's slow. How does that portray how you run your business if your people are saying those things? We want to get on top of that and make sure it doesn't happen. Falling behind, right? That's just the, not being relevant, being behind. You're going to be the target of a virus or an attack or, whatever the next problem is, right? One that's I've seen and is too high. And I think it's important to know in IT budget, you could be too high in one section and too low in another. It is definitely a balance. I've gone into places where the previous company was selling them a new server every time they got a software update. Instead of updating the server, instead of upgrading the application and reusing that resource, and then they had all that, but then on the other side, everything else was falling apart in the network. So they've been putting all the resources in the wrong bucket. We got to make sure we smooth that out and get it equally balanced across the organization. We can't hyper-focus on one area of that IT budget. Any questions yet? Sarah, have I gone too fast?
No questions yet.
Cool. Guess I'm doing awesome. I'll keep rambling.
Again, remember, for those people that join, first of all, we have had a lot of people join in a little bit later. So we'll go at the end of this webinar, when we get to it, we'll go back up to the top and just highlight the first couple pages again. But if you do have any questions, drop it into the chat and we'll address them as they go along.
Yeah, and we're just discussing IT budget strategies, right? And we have some standards in the industry of 4 to 6% as your IT spend. And this page here, we're talking about some of the items we may include in that budget, right? Servers, workstations, warranties, IT support. That's like me, IT management, any internal techs. Software. The biggest spend of all of these is probably software development. If you're going to decide there's no possible application in the world that allow me to run my business and I'm going to develop my own, get ready to open up that checkbook, kiddos. Security, right? This has been the biggest topic for us right now is security. And this is probably why I'm so interested in budgets right now, because everybody seems to have no budget for security. And I challenge that question and say, well, do you? Where are you at with your current spend? Maybe we're spending too much in an area. Phones, we take those on. Nobody likes phones, but they're a necessary evil. Switches, being the devices that connect your networking, your internet, all those things. Any support, any cloud, all that stuff we like to put in our IT budget and realize is our technical investment in our business. So I talk a lot about how this and how it does work. Here's a graph of a customer that we took on November 2019, just barely started, ramping up in December, ending up live early December. And as we were able to go through their environment and clean up, process out, replace the old equipment, get a really good network equipment in there, you see the graphs trend. Obviously, February is holidays and quiet, but we're able to bring this customer's issues down. And that's the real value, right? You're investing X dollars into a switch. It's a hidden tool, right? You don't see it, but these are the results of upgrading that equipment and getting the consistency, because literally we got in there, nothing had been taken care of, right? So we cleaned it up. Now it's our job to now keep it that way and help them with that budget so they don't have to have that bloat spend. But this is what getting it right looks like. Such an easy representation of cleaning up the environment, driving the tickets to zero, and you can really make a better network. So this is a super quick one, guys. This is the end. Y'all aren't asking questions. So we're to the end. We're working on next week's webinar. We have a couple ideas for it on what we're going to dive into. It might be a little more technical than normal because so far I've been very business strategy, and I feel like, there's some tech I'd like to bring in. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, if you would go back up to the beginning of the section just so that we can cover a little bit about the beginning. So I first of all just wanted to kind of go through it's very weird for me that Whit wanted to talk about this because it's odd as we're an IT company telling you guys how much of your revenue that you should be spending. But we have gained a lot of power and privilege, and knowledge by being a part of peer groups that have showed us what best-in-class numbers are for marketing, for admin costs, for those types of things. And so we know that there is a lot of power in those types of numbers. So we wanted to basically do our own research for what industry standards meant for other companies for what they should be spending in IT. Therefore, it's not us telling anybody what they should or should not be spending, but we can evaluate it as a partner with working alongside your company. So that's all we really ever wanted to be, is just a partner working along people trying to push them towards their goals. So we've done our research and from the CIO magazine, and this is back in 2013, that they posted this thing going and saying that their average is 4 to 6%. Now, I will say that we've gone back, and though it has increased over time, it goes back and forth into where it actually kind of sits in this pocket of the 4 to 6% for most industries. So that's kind of what we advise people whenever they do ask us, and how we talk about it from there. Again, so that means that this is 4 to 6%, and this is for larger companies. So there is a little bit larger of that for when you're dealing with a small company. When we're generally advising customers and talking to them alongside, we find that 4 to 6% for people that are not in high innovation is generally very good. Now, we do have customers that have been on the brink of security and on the very brink of innovation, trying to be above and beyond their normal against their competitors. And so they generally are on that high 6 and sometimes all the way even up to 8% of their revenue percentage.
Yeah, and typically when I get in and get to sit down with a customer and they trust me enough to open up their books and show me what's going on, we can see the areas where we're spending too little and attribute problems to those areas where, servers are slow, whether they're 5 years old or whatever. And, we can also say, look, we haven't bought a new server in 4 to 5 years, or when we bought the server, we didn't buy enough. We didn't spend enough money. It's just, it is IT. There's definitely a value to be had by spending money, and you can get results out of that. Now, I will say, we talked about switches, and I don't know if everybody knows what a switch is, but it's the device that interconnects your entire network. They sell switches for $59, and they sell switches for $159. They do a very similar thing, but each one's going to have the ability to do it either at a different speed or at a different logging level, or be updated differently, or some switches you can have pairs of them, so where the customer never even goes down when you have to do an update or if the switch dies, right? So anyway,
Yeah.
is that Tim?
Hey, sorry. So I had sent you an article the other day. We're in healthcare, obviously, and so what's the biggest risk for us? And is the open door for people to get into our software right now? I know we use you guys, and it feels safe, but I always worry about them clicking on something or accepting something. What's the number one risk out there right now for a HIPAA violation?
Yeah, you're right. Your employees have access to all this data, right? And therefore your employees are your biggest weakness, right? So you have to secure the employee. Something like two-factor, right? Because you can't trust the user with their password, right? With two-factor, it requires a second thing that's constantly changing, so that you have to validate the person another way, right? So we need that two-factor to be able to close the gap and make sure that we know what's going on, make sure that person says they're doing. Now, the other thing we do is geo-filtering, right? We can lock down what areas of the country are allowed, what countries are allowed at all. We could even do by time, so people can't get in based on the time of day. So, and we cannot invite them to our Zoom meeting unless we know who they are. I'm just kidding. Sorry. Anyways, does that answer your question?
I muted everybody.
Oh,
Yes. Can you hear me?
yeah.
All right. So
Cool. Well, has anybody else had any questions? I don't see any more weirdos in our meeting, so that's good.
Can we go back to the slide that shows what all to include in your IT
Yes, ma'am.
budget? Because
Sure
I'm
can.
working on that right now, and
Yeah.
trying
There
to
you
get
go.
people trying to get our partners to understand what's included. I think is where they're having a hard time with it, because I need more money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So server warranties
You're not
works.
sharing with.
Oh, I didn't hit share. Well, that was not very smart. Share screen. Well, it says I'm sharing. Share screen 2. Share. There we go. Did it again. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. So even, if your business hands out cell phones to your partners or any of your employees, I'd include that, right? Anything data, anything tech, this is all IT in my book. Any third-party cloud apps like Dropbox, OneDrive, those would be in there. Two-factor authentication, that would be in there. I wrap anything that's tech. Phones might be the one gray thing, because you could say that's telecommunications. But now with so much phone integration with not one content, but like chat and all that stuff, I bring it in. It's all got to be managed under IT.
How far out do you do a budget? Like, do you forecast out 5 years or 3 years, or?
Depending on the size of the organization, I love to do 3 to 5 years, right? Because we can't just budget this year. We have to have a plan, right? So say my organization is 50 users, and then ownership has said, okay, well, in 10 years, we want to be 200 users, right? Well, ideally, a year in advance of that 200 users or that next user count, I got to buy a server at probably year 6 that can run for the bigger user count, right? So it kind of depends on the business, right? If your company is a high growth production business, you're going to want to run that out far as you can. Obviously, you're going to be doing speculation, and your leadership and the sales team is going to have to meet their quotas. But, in a smaller, quieter business, we run an easy 3 to 4 year budget, right? Because a lot of the equipment lasts 3 to 4 years, switches last 3 to 4 years. Servers, we're going to try to make them last 5 years. Sometimes we'll stretch them to 7 as long as we can extend the warranties and they're still good, right? So, 1 year is not enough. You're right. I like to run 3. I work with a lot of hospitals. We run a 5-year budget, and often out there we're speculating, and we might be copying the previous negative 1 year's budget into that 6 year, plus some growth. But yeah, 3-5 years is the answer.
And how long do you recommend that, or the turnover on a laptop versus a desktop?
Very good question. Laptops, I say 3 years. Often they take more abuse. They're in people's laptops, their cars, they're getting carried around. They're just getting damaged more. And desktops, I say 5 years. Typically, desktops are more powerful out of the gate and they last longer. We do some trickery where we will take a desktop and convert it from a computer to a thin client and then stretch it out to 10 years. Because once we've taken it, to this, 5-year mark as a desktop, we then make it like a thin terminal and connect to a server. So it doesn't really matter. If it dies, it's just a matter of moving a USB stick around. So we can kind of stretch them out there. But as a Windows-based, Linux-based computer, I like 5 years for a desktop and 3 years for a laptop.
Can you describe a thin terminal?
A thin terminal is a fixed compute device that doesn't have a traditional operating system of sorts. It's a lockdown firmware-based operating system, which makes it inherently more secure, inherently more private, that all it can do is connect to a server. And all the user's data is going to exist over there on the server. And that's why we don't care if that device gets so old, because it's dumb. All it can do is talk to the server and relay the information. It holds no data. It's like a lot of the, if you go to the bank, that little box they're using, or a big hospital, those are all thin kernels. They have no data on there. They're getting everything from the server. High security, high scalability, easy to protect. There's not a lot of variables. We use a lot of thin terminals in our multi-site clinics, especially since like the servers they have are up in our data center in Austin. They need to be able to connect to the data center. All the data is there. We don't want them to have data in the clinic, so we use the thin terminal.
These are really good questions. You guys got anything else for us? It's much easier when you guys
fun.
come loaded with stuff for us to answer.
For sure.
Okay, I got one more. I'm sorry.
Please.
Go for it, Lisa.
No, Lisa.
So if you have all of your applications and everything either hosted in the cloud or you're using cloud applications, would you recommend thin clients?
Depends on your cloud application. That's tricky, right? Yes and no. Because if the application supports it, they can run from a terminal server in the data center and run fine. So I would, especially if you need that scalability function, right? If your organization is going to stay smaller, 50, 60 users, no. But if you want to see yourself go 60, 70, 80 users, then yeah, it's ideal because it gives you the control. I'd also say for you, you're security conscious, right? Having the ability to guarantee that there's nothing confidential on the end user's device is a strength, and you're multi-site. So you're a prime candidate to run as much as you can in the data center.
That's kind of the direction I was thinking we need to go, because right now we've got data sitting on people's computers that, we're encrypted, but it just makes me really nervous.
Yeah, it's backed up. And
well, and if someone hacks in or they lose it, or they're able to connect to an unsecured network, which they do.
Mm-hmm.
That makes
so what a lot of large organizations do is, if laptops are still the number one go-to for a user that moves around, right? But on that laptop, they still connect into the terminal server environment. And a lot of times on the laptops, they have nothing. We've even had some people convert laptops to thin clients so that box is dumber and dumber, right? It's just, you don't even need antivirus on it. It cannot get a virus. It's a thin OS that every time it boots back to the way it was. So they'll run that way to where they get that laptop up, they get on Wi-Fi, they hit a button, and they're then redirected to the terminal server environment, because that's where you have all the control and the least variables. So, like when I did work, I worked for Motorola through high school and in early college. When they check their email, they must be on network. So if they were going to get their email, they would connect to a server and then check their mail on the server. So there was no way, because they've got billion-dollar patents and stuff. They got to keep all that stuff locked down, and that's how they secured it. Right nowadays, we have a little bit more modern tools where we can do what's called sandboxing, and that's what like mobile device management does on your cell phone, or you can even run mobile device management on a laptop where you're allowing that user to access that data inside of a secured sandbox. That's why they give it that name. And that sandbox has the ability to stop them from being able to remove the data. And it also isolates the data from their desktop. So that's what mobile device management does, which is also inherently kind of what a terminal server does, because the data doesn't actually exist on a laptop. It exists somewhere else.
If you would, could you go back up to the one slide before this, please? I believe it's right before. Nope, one more. I think we're wrapping up here, and that's good. If you guys have more questions, feel free to jump in. But again, I just wanted to really reiterate that this percentage of what you're going for and budgeting for the future, it has so much to do with your company's goals and where you as a company are trying to go and where you're trying to be in your, not only your industry, but in the market and really just in the time. So especially I know during COVID times, people have been evaluating where they should be putting their energy right now. And that definitely comes into play here. Everything that you're dealing with comes into play at what percentage that you guys want to be investing in. So I think as business partners, I would really encourage you guys to reach out to us and say, I don't know if you fully understand our 3 to 5 year goals. Maybe it's just now this year's goals or whatever it may be, but here it is, just to make sure that we're making all the decisions in our IT that needs to be done to ensure that these goals are in that path, so that we can get with you guys too. Make sure that you're set up for that. I think that's the biggest thing that I see in that we're trying to really push through our account managers is understanding our customers' goals, because only then can we set you guys up for success. So if you guys have a feeling that we maybe are not getting the full encompass of where you're trying to go, please tell us. Please reach out to us. Please let us know, because that's our passion in what we are doing, what we do.
Yeah, I often say our biggest strength is that we're exposed to hundreds of networks, right? And if we don't have a chance to learn more about the struggles and what you're trying to do, we can't help you, right? Literally, I sit down and talk to people all the time about their struggles and what they're trying to do in their business, and I'm able to think back of all the other people I've talked to and how they're solving their problems, and so often we can find a similarity in the problem and solve the problem, right? And we give people at least some guidance on what path to take, and that's the fun part of this job, not fixing computers. So, for sure.
All right, well, I think that wraps it up for today. Yep, all the way down to the bottom. So next time we're going to be meeting on August 20th at 4 p.m., just like this, the third Thursday of the month. We haven't decided on a topic yet. When I send out the information for you guys, I'll make sure to have whatever we've decided on in there. And if you have anything that you want us to talk about, feel free to send it our way. I saw a question from Tim on security, and we did do last one in June's was on security. So I recommend that you check that one out on our website too, as we talked a lot about the different levels of security and what enhanced security now means.
I think Tim and I just need to go to dinner.
I think so. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you staying in here. Sorry for all those interruptions, and we'll work on getting it locked down better next time.
Thank you.